Okay guys, so today we're going to go over the answers for the body defenses guide that I made up for you. So we're going to start with slide 2 and just jump right into it. So number 1, what are the two main functions of the lymphatic system? So on slide 2. So there's immunity, it's one, and the other function is just basically blood volume and composition of the fluid. So just maintaining fluids and blood volume. Let's go with either one of those. Next question. True or false? Lymphatic vessels begin in the central tissues and organs. So that answer is actually false. They begin in the peripheral tissues. Then if we take a closer look, we can see how that actually works. Going through the peripheral portions, there are some in the central, but the majority of it's going to be peripheral. Okay. Fill in the blank. Lymphocytes respond to blank and blank on slide 4. So they respond to pathogens. So basically bacteria and viruses is what we're looking for on that one. There are also pathogens and abnormal cells. That works as well. Okay, and then the next answer. The interstitial fluid is known as, and then right here it's surrounded by lymph. So this is actually the fluid. You can see right here you have lymph right here and your lymphocytes. Okay. Next one. Primary lymphoid tissues and organs are found appendix and spleen, red bone marrow and tonsils, red bone marrow and thymus, appendix and red bone marrow. So 5. So right here you can see they are primary lymphoids are actually found in the red bone marrow and thymus. So the answer is C. Okay, going on to the next one. True or false? Lymphocytes are copied in the primary tissues and organs. That is actually false. They're in the secondary lymphoid tissues, and you can see right here, they're activated and cloned, so copied. Okay, going on to the next one. On slide 6, lymph vessels carry lymph from peripheral tissues to blank system. So they actually carry to the venous system. So you can see right here, you have the lymphatic capillaries, which are the smallest ones. It carries them to the venous tissues, and they're actually really close to the blood vessels, and there should be a photo coming up that shows it. So that's that one. Next, the smallest lymph vessels are known as arterial capillaries, venous capillaries, oxygenated capillaries, or lymphatic capillaries, which we just showed right here. It is D. Lymphatic capillaries. And you should always remember with anything, the capillaries are actually the smallest vessels within the body. Okay. Lymphatic caps act as a blank, blank, blank to allow entry for virus, bacteria, and all that other fun stuff. Okay. So right here you can see the region of overlap acts as a one-way valve. So basically stuff can come in, but it can't go back the other way. So this allows the viruses, bacteria, all the bad stuff to come in, but it doesn't allow it to go back. And this is going to allow the lymphocytes to actually take care of all of that in like its own area, safe to say. So it's bringing all the bad things into its own territory to take care of it. So that way it doesn't go back into the body and causing more problems. Okay, number 10. True or false? There's high pressure flow in lymphatic vessels. That's on slide 9. Actually, real quick, let's go to 8. Just so you can kind of see what's going on here. So you have regular interstitial fluid, and you have the capillaries and the lymphocytes, and this is how it's going to go. Take everything from the other capillaries, and it's going to go through there. Okay. Back to this one. So there's actually false. It is low pressure in the lymphatic vessels. So just remember, arteries have a high pressure, but lymphatic vessels actually have a low pressure involved. Okay, next one. What helps aids in the lymph vessels flow? So it's actually the surrounding skeletal muscles right here. So how you have your veins, your arteries, and your limbs, the skeletal muscle is actually going to help with that. It's going to help move the fluids. Okay, true or false? Lymphatic vessels are and nodes are only superficial. So let's go to slide 11 real quick so you can see what we're talking about. You have your lymphatic valves, your veins, your arteries. Sorry. Can you see right here? So it's going to send all the bad stuff into here at some point through the capillaries. Okay. And the answer is false. They're both superficial and deep. So you can see right here, these are more towards the outside of the muscles, right? And these are deeper right on the veins and the arteries. Okay. Number 13, the hypothalamus produces T lymphocytes. True or false? In the sun. There. So it's actually the thymus produces T lymphocytes. So this is actually false. Okay, next question. Which of these is a consequence of lymphatic blockage? Muscularitis, elephantiasis, trunk disease, or edema? So it's actually elephantiasis. Sorry, crappy at this one. So yes, there is some edema, right? Because you have it right here, and hypertrophy and fibrosis. Basically, it just makes it turns the body huge and enlarges it, which is actually this next slide right here. So again, that's what happens when the lymphs are blocked, and the answer is B. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so we're gonna go to the first video here.
When pain from a cold makes this feel like this, get relief with Tylenol Cold and Flu.
You may not know it, but
So we're gonna go to about 23 seconds here.
different tissue groups, organ systems, and specialized but widely as a free lunch. So your body has developed a 3-part policy toward these.
So to answer number 15, what are the 3 Ds the body uses to protect itself? So it detects, it deflects, and it destroys. Okay, then the next part. The blank defense system attacks non-specific things, while blank attacks specific. So that's still within the first video, and that's around a minute 52. So let's get to right about there.
Some incredibly sophisticated things, including defending itself from infection. But occasionally, there's something to be said for brute force. And a lot of your innate immune system's functions aren't exactly subtle. For example, your body's very first line of defense is a simple physical barrier. And it works. Like a wall around a fortress, your skin does a fantastic job of keeping out all manner of malevolent microorganisms. As long as that tough, keratinized epithelial membrane doesn't get torn open or busted up too much, it takes more time to call in, but it's specially designed to go after specific targets.
That should have been a little bit more back.
Or non-specific defense.
Okay, so I'm actually going to change. Oh, sorry, this was a 52 seconds. Okay, so the innate, right here, innate is a non-specific defense system. So the innate defense system attacks non-specific things, while the
defense system. Like your average frontline soldier, it's prepared to immediately engage with anyone suspicious, and it mostly includes. Here, your body can deploy your adaptive or.
And now we have adaptive, which is right here, while adaptive attacks specific. Okay, so yeah, inept and adaptive. Those are your 2 answers for there. Okay, let's go back, get to the second video. Okay, so what is the difference between a memory cell and an effector cell?
If you can do this, you can do this. Open app, request help, get rescued.
What's true in World of Warcraft is also true in your immune system. To defeat your enemy, you have to know your enemy, uncover its weaknesses, learn how to see it before it sees you. We've already talked about how your innate defense record things. The effector, or plasma cells, are packed with extra amounts of rough endoplasmic reticulum, which
Just a hair.
a minute. But while the memory cells are just there to hang back and record things, the effector, or plasma cells, are packed with extra amounts of rough endoplasmic reticulum, which acts as an antibody factory. These cells can mass produce the same antibody.
So basically, the memory cell remembers those old viruses that you have and tells the body how to fight it, while the effector cells are basically like the foot soldiers. They're now going to be programmed with what they need to fight whatever it is the memory cells and the helper cells are telling them to. Okay. Give an example of purposefully encountering a pathogen to achieve immunity through humoral response. That's around 6 minutes. Let's go there.
Overall immunity. The humoral response allows your body to achieve.
So an example of this is like when you're a little kid and someone gets the chicken pox and your mom tries to be like, oh no, go play with him, go get the chicken pox. Because, like, example, chicken pox, you want to have that as a younger person because it's easier to take care of while your immunity system is still good versus when you're older, chicken pox can actually become deadly. So you're purposely trying to encounter a pathogen in this case versus it being random. Okay, now on to the third video.
It is time! We have arrived at the final.
Okay, which of these do T cells not do? Activate macrophages, cause inflammation, fire up other T cells, regulate immune response, or none of the above. It's around 3 minutes and 59 seconds.
Cell. T cells are made in the bone marrow, but they mature in the thymus, the lymphoid gland that sits on top of your heart, and which is actually what the T in T cell stands for, like a virus that's been engulfed, broken up, and displayed to get the attention of other cells. And this is how MHCs are totally essential to the cellular immune response. Because the heroes of your cellular defenses, the T cells, can't actually detect whole antigens. They can only recognize them when they're all diced up and decorating an antigen-presenting cell. T cells are made in the bone marrow, but they mature in the thymus, the lymphoid gland that sits on top of your heart, and which is actually what the T in T cell stands for. And you have several different kinds of T cells, but the two you really have to know about are helper Ts and cytotoxic cells. Helper Ts themselves can't kill, but they can activate.
Apologies, I thought it was in that spot. Not easy trying to find all these things.
It is time! We have arrived!
Anyways, I'm not going to try to look for it. But, so the answer to this is actually this thing that's stupid. Anyways, the answer is A. It actually activates macrophages, not micro. Alright, now let's get back to the slides. Okay, it's 21. What do phagocytes do? Well, they engulf pathogens and cell debris. So they're basically like the garbage cleaners, you know. They pretty much eat damn near everything. Okay. NK cells handle blank cells. So, NK through immune surveillance actually destroys any abnormal cells. So, natural killers is for NK. So, any abnormal cells, they're the ones that take care of it. Okay, the Golgi apparatus produces blank, which causes apoptosis. Let's go to 23. So if we look right here, they create what is called perforin through their vesicles. So they have the little vesicles that come out of the Golgi apparatus that goes into the other target cell and releases perforin, which causes cell death or apoptosis. Okay, true or false? NK cells detect everything. Okay. So it is not perfect. Sometimes tumor cells, for example, can get away through the NK cells and they're unable to detect them. And there should be a picture of that right here. So an example, you have a tumor right here and they're growing the cells so fast that even though the NK cells are killing everything they can, it's still possible for some of the daughter cells to get through and it's going to actually cause a secondary tumor somewhere else, which is why a lot of times when tumors start to metastasize, it's very hard because that means that the NK cells in the body couldn't detect them and were able to spread out further. Okay, so the answer again, 23 is false. Moving on to 24, IFNs prevent the entry of viruses, true or false? So IFN stands for interferons. So you can see right here, they do not prevent the entry of viruses, but interfere with viral replication. So they're not going to actually stop them from coming into the body, but what they're going to do is keep them from replicating. So the answer is false. Okay, on to 25. True or false? Inflammation is a reaction of the body in order to attract macrophages to particular tissue sites. Let's go to 29. So you see right here, okay, so inflammation is like the redness, the swelling, heat, pain, sometimes loss of function. And what it does attract is phagocytes, not macrophages. So the answer is false. So right there. Okay, number 26. Blank are produced during a fever. So pyrogens. So pyro for fever or heat and gen is substance. So basically it's going to create fever-inducing proteins, and it's going to reset the temperature thermostat in the hypothalamus, which is why a lot of people say sometimes you just gotta sweat it out. You know, when you're not feeling good, you want to stay warm, you want to go through it, but also there's good fevers and there's bad fevers. There's breaking a sweat to get through something, and then there's your body's trying to fight something off, which is why you have a high fever, because that's what it's trying to do. It's just another sign that there's something wrong. And just a little note here, 99 degrees is the start of a temperature, but really you don't have a problem until you get to 101 and above, and that's when you really need to go to the doctors, just FYI. Okay, 20, okay, 27. B cells are produced in the thymus, hypothalamus, bone marrow, or thyroid gland. Let's go to 34. So right here, in mammals, which that we are, B cells mature in the bone marrow and T cells are in the thymus. So we can rule out that. We can rule out hypothalamus and thyroid. So the answer is C. So just remember, B cells, bone marrow. Okay? So be boned, people, be boned. Okay? and T thymus. T thymus. So, I mean, if you really think about it, just keep in mind B's are going to come from a place that starts with B. T's are going to come from a place that starts with T. So B comes from bone, marrow, and T's come from thymus. Okay, which of these is not a property of adaptive immunity? Compatibility, specificity, I'm tongue-tied, specifics, memory, or versatility. So let's go to 35. So we can roll out specificity because that is in there. Sorry about that. Damn my PC games. It does have versatility. And it does have memory. So the answer here is compatibility. A. Next, blank blank and blank blank are both used to communicate in adaptive immunity. So on slide 36. So cell-mediated immunity and antibody-mediated immunity are both used in adaptive immunity. Okay. So this is the one that's going to have the phagocytes activated and then the T cells, so cell-mediated, right? The cells are telling the T cells, hey, it's time to get to work. And the antibodies give rise to cells that produce antibodies. So antibodies make antibodies. Pretty easy to remember that, I hope. Okay, moving on. Okay, question 30. True or false? CD4 markers respond to class 1 MHC proteins. So it's 38. So CD4 markers actually respond to class 2 MHC proteins. So this is actually false. So CD8 respond to class 1, CD4 respond to class 2 out of the two. And CD stands for clusters of differentiation. Okay. And as you can see right here, it's basically so these recognize the different antigens within the body. And there's different ones based off the T cells, which is your cytotoxic and your regulatory T cells. Okay, and then you have your helper T cells. So CD4s help, CD8s are cytotoxic and regulatory. Okay, what are the three types of CD8 T cells? Okay, so there's the cytotoxic, right? These are the ones that kill. They go out, they destroy, right? Any of the infected cells. So again, these are like your foot soldiers, as you've seen in the crash course. These are you guys that are going to go out, they're going to release the perforins, cause apoptosis, right? And then you have your memory cells, okay? So sometimes they'll become the cytotoxic cells, but for the most part, these are used to remember the first antigen exposure and what's needed to be done. And then you have your regulatory T cells. So these secrete suppression factors, okay, and they limit the response of the other T and B cells. Okay, MHC stands for Major Histocompatibility Complex. That's a mouthful. So it's basically cell surface glycoproteins that are used for the immune system that tell if the tissue is compatible. So an example of this is when you're receiving a new body organ, one of the things they have to do is they have to do a tissue test to make sure that the antigens within your body aren't going to fight off the new body part that's coming into yours, because otherwise it's going to reject it and it's not going to do any good. That's why it's so hard for people to get a new replacement part. For an example, a kidney. Not only does the blood type have to match, but the tissues have to be able to work with each other. Otherwise, you're putting a kidney into a body for someone that's not going to work for. Okay, what is an epitope? Number 33. That's in slide 41. So each MHC molecule on the cell surface displays a molecular fraction of a protein called an epitope. So an epitope is basically just a fraction of a protein on an MHC molecule. Okay. Number 34. Class 1 MHC interact with CD8 molecules on surfaces of helper T cells. This is on slide 43, and that is a true or false question. Okay, so class 1 MHC proteins, CD8 molecules. Okay, and they do help with T cells. So that answer is true. Okay, blank T cells seek out antigen-bearing cells. 44. So you can see right here, it's a little, zoom in a little. So cytotoxic T cells seek out antigen-bearing cells. Okay. Moving on, 36. When are CD8 T cells activated? It's on 45. So they're activated when they encounter a specific antigen, right? Okay, and then there's going to be a physical or chemical stimulation of the T cell, and that's going to tell us. So basically, this is right here, like the safety of a gun, the co-stimulation just makes it from attacking normal cells. The whole point of the CD8 T cells is to attack abnormal cells and kill them. And then just remember, you do have 3 different cell types, and they're all going to go after the same antigen. Different memory cells are going to tell what antigens are needed depending on what's coming into the body. That's why we had different shots for different things. You get a shot for the chickenpox, the flu, the measles, the mumps, because when it does come, your body's already going to have that memory installed and say, hey, this is what we need to fight. Dun, 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 dun. Send in the foot soldiers. Okay, moving on. 37. Which of these is not used to eliminate antigens? Agglutination, adhesion prevention, inflammation, or none of the above? That's on 52. So, methods of eliminating antigens. Okay, so we have prevention, right here, adhesion prevention, so that is there. Okay, what about inflammation? Da, 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 da. We have inflammation. Okay, what about agglutination? Agglutination is there as well. So the answer is none of the above. These are all used to eliminate antigens. Okay, moving on. Number 38. Which antibody classification is the most abundant? Okay, and if we look right down here, the IgG form is the most abundant at 80%. So it's this yellow one right here. Okay, and that is B. Okay, what is a hapten? So they're basically just partial antigens, which you can see right here. Okay, so you have your carrier molecule trying to hook onto the antibody. So then the partial antigen is going to hook in. So it's just basically completing the antigen. Okay. Is the primary or secondary response higher with foreign antigens? It's on 59. So the secondary response to foreign antigens start with moderate IgM. Okay, so let's take a look at the primary response. So you can see it doesn't really go that quickly over time. But the secondary response goes up right off the bat. So the secondary response is actually higher with foreign antigens. And part of the reason for that is because you got to remember the first primary response didn't know how to handle it. The secondary response is going to be a lot higher because now it's already ready. As soon as it sees it, boom, we're ready to go and attack.